Hello, everyone, and welcome to this 20th anniversary celebration of the Writers' Room, a fantastic opportunity for us to really celebrate the richness of what the Writers' Room has done for our sector. I'm going to invite our panelists to make themselves visible, and then we'll take a moment for them to introduce themselves. Fantastic panel that we've got for you today with some rich history about the Writers' Room. So, Anne, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and then give everyone a chance to do the same.
I'm Anne Edivine. I'm head of BBC Writers' Room. Quite simple.
Thanks, Anne. Isis?
Hi, I'm Isis Davis. I was on the Writers' Room, Drama Room 2018 and TV Drama Programme 2019, and I'm currently writing on Killing Eve.
Great to have you here. Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter Bowker, and I predate the Writers' Room because I'm so old, and Anne and I were probably on the first wave of Writers' Room initiative all that time ago, I think. And that's, yeah.
It's great to have you on the panel. Manda.
Hello, I'm Manda. I'm Senior Commissioning Editor in the drama team. So we work really closely with Anne and the team at Writers' Room.
Fantastic. And last but by no means least, Vinay.
Hello, I'm Vinay Patel. I'm a screenwriter, obviously, and I did a couple of schemes early on, 2014, 2013 with Writers' Room, and they made my first short film.
Brilliant. Really looking forward to getting to hear your stories and the contributions. But what better way to kick off a celebration such as this than perhaps looking back at some people who have a lot to say about the impact that the Writers' Room has had on their lives and our industry.
Hello, I'm Russell T. Davis, and I'd just like to say congratulations to the BBC Writers' Room site. Happy anniversary. And I think you are a magnificent site. I think you're the best. I think you are an example of the BBC at its finest, and it is the first resource I send any new writer to. You are invaluable, and there's nothing quite like you. Well done. Keep going.
Hi, I'm Jed Mercurio. I'm on the set of Line of Duty. Many thanks to BBC Writers' Room, who've been helping writers develop their careers for 20 years. Here's to the next 20.
Happy birthday, BBC Writers' Room. Thanks for what you do and have done for emerging writers. Hi.
Thank you. And on the 20th anniversary, for which I didn't even know it was 20, you're brilliant. Thank you.
The BBC Writers' Room is the go-to place for any aspiring or working screenwriters. It's an absolute treasure trove of resources, and the team behind it really do support new, unheard and diverse voices. And my message to the Writers' Room, thank you.
Happy birthday, BBC Writers' Room. I'm sorry I didn't get you a present. I thought about it, and it's the thought that counts. But I'm so glad you're in the world because you made my writing life better.
I'd like to say to the Writers' Room, thank you. You've been a big part of my career. You've supported me, you've lifted me up, you've taught me so much. I want to say thank you to the hard-working team for everything that they've done for me and for other writers.
Happy 20th birthday, BBC Writers' Room. Thank you for opening the door.
Such a great compilation, and our very own Vinny in the clip as well. But no montage or celebration could be complete without hearing a few words from Kate Rowland, who was previously the head of Writers' Room. So enjoy this clip. Oh, maybe we don't have that ready just yet. Not to worry, we can come back and hear from Kate later. But we have, as I said, a fantastic panel, rich in experience and knowledge to impart and share. So let's kick that off. I'm going to go to Manda first. what was life like before BBC Writers Room came along?
So I confessed, well, Anne and I mutually confessed to each other that we, right at the beginning of our BBC careers, read the unsolicited scripts that came in, which is part of our remit as public service broadcaster, quite rightly. So my first job was assistant reader in BBC drama serials, as was 20 years ago. And I read all sorts of things that came in, and sometimes it was a real pleasure, and sometimes it was really surprising, and sometimes it was really heartbreaking because people had sort of handwrite their story and get terribly cross when you turned it down with a very polite letter. But there is a huge job to be done, and it's a really serious job about what is that point of entry that is egalitarian and fair and is UK wide. What is the best point of entry for people who want to be writers and whose voices are there or are burgeoning? And I'm very we're so grateful that for the last 20 years, we're really excited about the next 20 years. We always want to keep them closer, not further. And I really don't want to have to read the slush pile again, even though there were some pleasures in it.
Or me.
Well, Anne, you've kind of been looking after and taking care of the realms of the Writers' Room. In your time, what did you want to achieve? How did you see things evolving? You've had a particular stamp on it since you took over. It'd be great to hear some of your thoughts.
Well, of course, in those 20 years, Kate did 15 and I've only been here the last 5. So I've got to pay tribute to all the work that Kate did, you know, because she did extraordinary work and set up the unsolicited windows, and shows like the first transgender sitcom came out of Writers' Rooms, you know, Boy Meets Girl and In the Flesh, Last Hours of Laura Kate, all sorts of things. So I want to say that first. And the website was already set up as a great resource. But I wrote down, I went back and looked at my vision document when I was applying for the job, and I was going, I want Writers' Room to be cross-genre, cross-platform, across the BBC and across the UK. I was like, it was a team of 8 when I started. A Salford office had 2 people in it, London had 6, and now there's 16 of us. And we have offices in Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. There's been a big push into the nations. And our website, I just checked with our digital manager this morning, we're heading to 5 million views this year on our website, 90,000 Twitter followers, 30,000 Facebook, 10,000 on Instagram. And we deal normally between 10 and 12,000 scripts a year. This year it's more because we did a call out for short films earlier. It's more than that. So it has burgeoned. Sorry, I think you asked me about what changes I wanted to put in here. So, so building on the existing work. So I'd been a program maker for 20 years when I came in, and I was very focused on tangible outcomes, and the poor team got really sick of me going on about tangible outcomes. You know, what's the outcome from this? You know, what are we actually achieving? And I wanted to stitch us into production because that was my background, and I wanted new and diverse writers to be in touch with producers, and I wanted to create, I also wrote down a more focused program for writers, a pathway integrated with production, and that's what I tried to do. And once we moved with the BBC split into production and commissioning, once I moved out of the production into the commissioning team, that meant building links with indies and just sort of widening our remit altogether. So in my search for tangible outcomes, the first thing I did was set up Drama Room and Comedy Room as a result of our unsolicited script windows, which is development groups that come out of the unsolicited scripts. I brought together various initiatives under the Writers' Room umbrella. So there'd been a one-off writers course in drama, and I brought that into Writers' Room and called it a TV drama writers program. And I wish I'd thought of a better name because I've been sick of saying it at length over and over. But ISIS was on that, and it's a brilliant opportunity where writers get placed with indies to develop original series. I set up a director's scheme, which you know about. supported by Directors UK to get talented and a whole range of directors from different backgrounds getting their first BBC credits. I established the offices in the nations, and our London Voices group, which had been a sort of Black and ethnic minority writers group, we sort of rolled it out around the nations. We had Belfast Voices, we had Northern Voices already actually, Scottish Voices, Welsh Voices, was expanded our grassroots work. And we ended up with sort of a ladder, you know, from emerging voices, groups coming through Drama Room, TV Drama Writers Programme, and then, oh look, there were loads of things. We had a fire in our belly the first couple of years, you know, we sort of, and we were lucky. We were lucky, you know, I sort of found, you know, we managed to raise funding. I mean, I hit a mood where people really wanted to develop new talent. And I was lucky that the funding came. I was able to set up loads of stuff.
It sounds like a rich and expansive portfolio. So it's probably going to be a hard question for you, Anne, but what's your proudest moment? What do you look back on and think, yeah, that was a job well done?
Well, you know, there's quite a few things. And I you know, I was thinking about this, I could go on at length, you know, from, you know, the Scottish Writers' Festival we pitched, and I got such resistance in Scotland, and then it went brilliantly, and that opened up so much work. But I've always thought that nothing really teaches a writer more or gives them more of a calling card than getting their work made. And we established a series called The Break. It's their 5-minute monologues. They're on BBC Three, and they're for unheard voices. And so the first year we did it, we cobbled together a bit of money from Taster and a bit from Drama. We did it with Black and ethnic minority writers. We had people like Charlene James in it, you know, Ellens, you know, people who've gone on to do all sorts of things. And we managed every year to carry on doing that. So we did 2 with ethnic minority writers. We did 1 in Scotland, 1 in Northern Ireland. And this year, and honestly, I'm so proud of these. This year, it's 5 films by disabled writers, directed by disabled directors, performed by disabled performers, and we're just picture locking now. And it has not been easy, not in the middle of COVID. And I'm so sort of proud of everybody. And they came out really of our work. The thing I'm probably proudest of really is my disabled writers group. Well, they're not mine, obviously. I feel very, you know. We talked about setting up a disabled writers group for about 18 months, probably more. We talked to all the disability arts organisations. We took advice. We talked to Grey Eye. And I think we were all a little bit scared about getting it wrong, and, you know, and in the end, we just did it. We established what we call the Writers' Access Group. And we called it that because it's about access. You know, it's not about disability. It's about making the BBC accessible. It's also amused us to refer to them as our WAGs, which everyone now cheerfully does. And just this last week, I heard that Charlie, who you saw in the clips there, he's just been nominated for a Rose d'Or, which, you know, I'm so proud of.
Fantastic. That's fantastic.
And another one, David, just had his first TV episode on this week, and he wrote to thank us, and that was also lovely. I just picture locked a short film by Letty as part of the break. I heard, this is all in the last week, and I heard that another one, Annalisa, is in development for an original series. Sadly, with Channel 4, what can you do? But that, I mean, I think it just goes to show that it was the access that was needed, and we got things wrong. We really did. And our first 3 months were not easy. You know, we got things wrong, but I sort of think unless you risk getting it wrong, you don't do anything. So I sort of said to everybody, we've got to go in with an open heart, and you're going to have to tell us, you know, if we fuck up here, and you know, but they're great, and we've just kicked off our second group. So and again, I'm just loving meeting them, and the talent's fantastic. So there, yeah, that.
A number of highlights and proud moments to look back on, and it's been phenomenal what's been achieved. Peter, I'm going to come to you next. We've heard about the impact it's having in the industry, the ability to bridge a gap between talent and the need of our sector. How did you come across the Writers' Room? When did you first realise they were there, and what was that like?
Anne can correct me if I'm wrong, there was an initiative, I think, built around, we did a series of modern Canterbury Tales.
Oh, yes, there was that. That's right.
Yeah, and I think Writersroom did a sort of tie-in new writers competition, which I think ended up with a piece of work, either a short piece on the radio or something like that. It was incredibly glamorous. I went to Canterbury, and and that was the first time I was aware of it. And then when it really kicked off for me was the series of Writers' Room events, that sort of 2 and 3 day conferences with a very specific brief towards writers who had had some work commissioned, or maybe some work made, or maybe a play on, who were looking to get onto the next stage of getting original work on TV. And that just struck me as a very good observation about the nature of the industry. That it's often not the first rung that's evasive. It's moving on. It's moving on from getting your first work made to starting to begin a career, really. And so that was, and those conferences was all very good. And then we did one of the conferences. The theme was, I think, disability access, and because I'd written Flesh and Blood and then went on to write Marvellous, and then the A Word I'm kind of associated with that. So I did some of that. But just to say that we've reached a point in the journey where we're doing a spin-off from the A Word called Ralph and Katie, which will be the first drama with 2 actors with Down syndrome in the lead. And I wanted the writers to be disabled writers, and we went to Anne and used Writers Access Group to get the writers on it, and we're just going through the process now of selecting. And I can just say, from the quality of all the pitch documents that were delivered, that the quality of the writing and the invention of the ideas, and also the ability to be able to bend your imagination to somebody else's series, which is a real skill in this industry, are all already there. So that's another tribute to the work that Anne and her group do, really. So the Writers' Room for me has always been there, and it wasn't there when I was starting out. And when you're starting out, I think Anne mentioned the word look. I think it takes some of the look out of it, that you have a dedicated reading team, that your work's going to be read, you'll get some feedback, even if it's not feedback you like. I was lucky in that I nearly had a radio play made and briefly entered into correspondence with a script editor, and then later on my work was championed by a writer called Bill Gallagher. So if some of the look can be taken out of it, then clearly, especially in terms of attracting diverse talent, then that for me seems to be the most important part of it.
And you talk about luck being quite, the element that the Writers' Room does, it actually levels out the playing field to some degree and gives you a bit of a starting point. I think a lot of writers will feel that there is a larger percentage of luck. Everyone's got a story within them that they want to tell, and hopefully there are people there to help tell them. How would you advise people to actually make the most of the Writers' Room, given your knowledge about what they can do for aspiring writers?
Well, I can only echo really what Russell said in the little film, that it would always, my advice has been constantly to new and emerging writers to go there first, and to go out. And for a lot of writers, the truth is, and the depressing truth is, for a lot of writers, it's the only place to go to get unsolicited manuscripts read. And what I would say is, and I've been doing this for 30 years now, and it's still painful to receive notes. But what I would say is to listen to the advice. And when I started out, the radio play I was telling you about, I was 23 and got a lovely letter back saying, "We think this is rather raw, but we'd like you to come to a meeting to talk about you know, how we might turn it into something for the radio. And I was so arrogant. I remember I tore up the letter and thought, I'll just write another play and that'll be fine. You know? And 10 years later, I got my big break. So I think the lesson from that is take on board the constructive criticism that's coming your way and engage with it. Engage with it. Engage with the process. And if you don't get in, go a second time, go a third time. And you will improve as a writer. You just, you know, all writers, well, in our industry anyway, I think the writers would agree, you thrive on feedback. And you know, so that's the advice I would give.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Peter. Isis, I'm going to come to you. So Peter's talking about, you know, taking on that feedback, making sure that you're honest and true with what you're seeing.
Yeah.
You've obviously experienced that much more recently, I guess, having joined the Writers' Room development group. And you said right at the top that you're working on Killing Eve. I think most of us in the audience would love the opportunity to get involved in something like that. So what's it been like?
Well, like Peter said, get the feedback, because actually the first time I applied to the Writers' Room, I didn't get in. And I got an email asking if I wanted feedback. And straight away I was like, no, I don't want feedback. And then I was like, yeah, I do, because this is what I'm doing. This is my career. I want to better myself. I want to know what I could have done better, what I could do differently. So I got the feedback. And the next year I got on to the programme. Well, that was the drama room. And for me, I had signed with my agent just before, it was my agent that told me to apply for the drama, for the Writers' Room. I'd never heard of it before. I was just in off the street, like not literally on the street, but a new writer. I'd just written a screenplay that had won an award. I just had to get it out. I just wrote this story and it did really well, and I got signed off the back of it. And it was my agent that said apply to the BBC Writers' Room. So when I was on the drama room, I was just, it was all new to me. Like, it was the first time that I was meeting other writers, meeting people in the industry. It was the first time we were having like seminars on structure. And this is something that I didn't know about before, because I just used to write. So it's still something that I'm working on, but now I have the tools to look back and think, okay, let's break this, let's break the structure down. And I'm using those tools that I learned back in 2018. And yeah, I think for me, I'm new, it's all new, but you know, the Writers' Room was just an amazing opportunity that opened so many doors. And then I got into the TV drama programme, and I mean, the people that wanted to see me and read my work just from knowing that I was on the programme, it's been incredible. And yeah, most recently I've joined the writing team for Killing Eve, which is a dream come true. So I've always been a massive fan of the show, and I'm also working on a few of my own projects. But like I say, I'm very new, but yeah, the Writers' Room was kind of the start for me.
And as someone who absolutely adores Killing Eve, can I say thank you very much for making it so good?
Well, I'm new to the party. I'm just in awe of
Take the credit. Don't worry about it. Just take the credit. So look, you talked about the experience being new. I mean, you know, anybody who wants to get into writing, having an opportunity like yours is like a dream come true. You kind of said that. But how have you found that experience in terms of your writing? How has that helped your writing? How have you seen it grow? And what are you taking from that that's really shaping your writing style?
Well, as I say, the structure. I used to just write, and I still do at times. But now if I get stuck, I can look back and trace where I need to go or where I've gone wrong. What's the inciting incident? What's the midpoint? Like I didn't know any of that before. So I would kind of just get lost in the script and then kind of retrack. I guess I kind of had some structure inbuilt in me, but didn't really know what it was. Whereas now I've learned the techniques, I can go back and work out what I'm actually doing. So I think that's the biggest thing I've taken from it. I think I've certainly improved as a writer. I felt really supported, and especially when I was paired up with my indie, who I'm still working with, they kind of just, they got me straight away. Like when we got to pick our indie and I picked Balloon, and like they got the script, that they just got my idea straight away. So I think my last script that I did as part of the TV drama program, I'm so proud of it, and it's one of my, like, hopefully it will get made. I just felt the read through was amazing. The company that I worked with, just they gave me a lot of notes, but the notes helped, and it got it to a place where it's so much better than had I not had notes. Like, I don't know, it's just been an incredible experience all around. I think it's helped me grow as a writer, definitely.
Oh, brilliant. And we could just tell from the way that you're explaining yourself, the benefits and passion that you have. Vinny, I'm going to come to you. So look, we've been hearing a lot about the Writers' Room, what it's done for people's careers, how it's helped shape them. But tell us a little bit more about your experience of writing an I Play a Short that then helped your first length drama, and how maybe the Writers' Room was involved in any of that, if at all.
Yeah, so my first experience as the Writers' Room is interesting hearing Isis talk about tools, because for me, my very first experience was literally way back in the day. I was working a job I didn't love, and I was just like idly looking at the internet, and they had, this is gonna make me sound very old, but they had like a macro for BBC Word that basically put your words to make it look like a script, which now feels really silly, but fine. You forget like how when you're starting out, don't know anything about the industry, don't know anything about how things are meant to be, stuff like that feels really important. So having this little thing that sort of just changed everything I did to make it look like a script suddenly made everything else about it feel more feasible. And this is like, it was like free. It wasn't, you didn't have to pay anything for it. And there wasn't, I don't think there was any free screenwriting software around at that point. And then I got onto a couple of schemes, and they were all about, they like took the first 10 pages or something, and then actually it was mostly about pitching, I think, my first one, which is still like, you know, that's a tool that you need for outside of the writing itself, but it is how you get yourself into a position to actually write stuff like for money, hopefully. And that was incredibly useful, because again, like, no one's going to teach you that, like just being shoved in a room and going, you've got 10 minutes to figure out how to tell this story in the most engaging way possible to a group of people who maybe don't care about it at all. Like, that's like, will always be a relatable skill in this industry. And then, yeah, from there, like, I then got to pitch for putting something through for a short film. And like, I basically learned what I'd used from my other encounters with the Writers' Room to get through to that. Nothing like, you know, having a play on teach you everything about you need to know about how bad or good you are as a playwright. Nothing is, you're never the same writer again once you have anything put into production, because suddenly all the things that are indulgent in your head suddenly become very clear when you've like got 2 hours to film like a 10 scene. You're like, no, it's more emotional than this. What do you do it? I have a real practical side to me. So seeing something that was in my head for ages suddenly happen, and understanding the mechanics of that, I think makes you a better writer. You understand what you're asking of a production team when you write something. So this all sounds very prosaic, sorry. But I also did, I applied for one of the open submissions, and I think I got to like a full read, and I got like, I too got offered feedback, and I am a masochist, so I did ask for it. And I got like 5 pages of incredibly detailed and incredibly good feedback on a script that no one else was interested in. And I never did anything with that script, but the things that were in that feedback were all like mistakes that I'd run across absolutely everything else I've done. So it was a real, again, having that first person who's willing to read your stuff before you have an agent, before you have anyone in your corner, was really galvanizing. And especially because I think this industry can feel very distant. It can feel very hard to access. It can feel like it's sort of like a chosen preserve. And yeah, so from those early days of just looking at opportunities on that website, I was working a data entry job, to sort of now, I think the thread of that sort of runs through the writers' room. So I'm super grateful for that.
It's brilliant. And you've talked about making the transition into the writing for television. A little bit tells me that you wrote for Doctor Who. What was that experience like?
Yeah, insane. Yeah, it's a wonderful show, and I'm very lucky to write for it. But yeah, it's Russell's, who's in the video, wrote a book about writing for Doctor Who, and if you read that, then you'll be like, I never want to do this job. No, it's one that I feel very lucky, because I feel like I've had two big breaks for the BBC. One is getting to pitch and write Murdered by My Father, and the other, which Doctor Who I got onto because of the script from Murdered by My Father, and I got to do that because of Writers' Room introducing me to the producer of that. So again, there's a through line there. But yeah, like getting a chance to tell those stories, like the first episode being about partition of India, I didn't think I could weirdly get that away as a straight drama, but as an episode of Doctor Who, somehow it becomes more feasible. And I think that's what that show does brilliantly, actually putting sort of unexpected stories in front of a family audience.
And in terms of those experiences that you have, is there a killer story in you that you're waiting for the world to connect with?
Yes, just gone out to channels today, including we'll find out where this all actually has ended up. I think the thing is, just like a thing I remember from starting out, sorry, I'll stop talking in a second, was I feel like you feel like the one script you write is like, this is it, I can only write this script. This is like, if no one likes this, then I'm absolutely screwed. And then you find another idea will find you. So I think I'm trying to be aware, I'm trying to tell myself maybe to go, if this doesn't work out, it's fine. You'll find something else that's amazing down the line that you really love as well.
Lots of nods from the panel, so that's good to know. And I'm going to come back to you. Obviously, my day job is that of Head of Creative Diversity, really looking about greater inclusion and representation. So I would be remiss if I did not ask you, what additional stuff is the Writers' Room and your team doing to help create greater diversity, both on screen and off?
Wow. It's interesting, isn't it? Writers' Room has always championed diversity from Kate's time onwards. You know, it was very much central about widening the pool. And, you know, and I came from community theatre. You know, I've lived I'm from a working class family. I've lived all my adult life in an area where I am in the racial minority, as my kids are. And so diversity is just like breathing. It's like dirt, you know? But everyone has unconscious bias. Do you know, you have to really think, you know? And so one of the first things that I did do was think about our reading process. Our readers are a very diverse team, and we make sure it stays that way as we lose people and gain people. But also, I took a decision early on, and actually it was something somebody at BAFTA said to me, that we now take all names and demographic information off scripts. So we don't read scripts knowing what the name is or what the gender of somebody is. We don't know their age. We don't know where they're based. So you're just reading the work. And that's been really interesting and actually quite eye-opening. So I think that's a really positive step. We do a certain amount of outreach. You know, we want to encourage underrepresented writers to engage with us. We talk to Tallowa and Yellow Earth, Tamasha, the Young Vic, all of those places. I mean, don't get me wrong, a writer's demographic is not of itself of interest to me. Actually, what I'm interested in is their voice and their stories, you know, and actually it's that. And look, I know you disagree with me on quotas here, but I have never operated quotas. June Sarpong disagrees with me, BBC disagrees with me, probably BAFTA does, but I have always felt quotas are undermining and divisive, and I also think they're unnecessary. I think if you are truly open to new stories and voices, Black and ethnic minority writers from other underrepresented groups come through organically. That's my experience. You know, I've never yet, without operating quotas, we've never yet had a white room, you know, or a male room. It just doesn't happen. Anyway, this is the hill I'll die on. I'm not going to operate quotas, but I know the rest of the industry disagrees with me. But there we go. That's my flag there. And in fact, our last drama room, white writers were in the minority, and that wasn't deliberate. That was just, who have we got? What are the new stories? What are the new voices? You know, we have to have them. We have to have them. You know, and it is what it is. I do think some special interventions are necessary, like the WAGS group, because the access needs are so profound and need addressing so specifically and carefully. And also it makes a space where disabled writers can relax because they know everyone's in the same boat. And I've had this said to me by somebody who has been in the drama room, but also in the WAGs. And it's just that sense of, okay, everyone gets it, you know, that sense of relaxing. We do a few other bits and pieces. As I say, our London Voices group is pretty ethnic minority, but not completely. We're not exclusive about it. You know, if I find another voice, I think, no, let's have that person. We do a certain amount of selected script editing support when we think somebody's got a script that's nearly but not quite great, and that's enabled people to get agents and get into things. You know, just give people that little push. Socioeconomic diversity is very important to me as well. I've recently started Cornish Voices. You know, so many TV execs have got second homes in Cornwall that they don't realise it's actually one of the poorest areas in Western Europe. And actually, they probably haven't met a real Cornish person, you know, except me, and I don't sound Cornish, you know, and I don't live there. And actually just trying to dig into those other stories and go, no, here's something we've not looked at. Here's an area just to sort of dig at. And recently, here's the thing, to explore the experience of Black writers with Writersroom, one of our writers, Black writers we work with, offered to do some research for us amongst Black writers and to find out their experiences of Writersroom. And so we did that. We supported them to do that. We paid people for their time, and it was all anonymized, so we don't know who was in that group. So people could speak freely. We've got a report and we're currently digesting it. And some of it's quite challenging. And that's good. It should be challenging, actually, you know. And we will implement many, if not most, of their recommendations. I'm going to push back on some, actually, because they're unrealistic. It's not quite how it works. But I think undertaking that research, being able to listen to people, you know, however open we think we may be, we are still the BBC. And sometimes you need people in their own safe space to tell us what their personal experience has been, you know, without feeling they might be compromising their career or whatever. So, you know, you read it and a couple of times you go, oh, but that's good. You know, I think that's right. I think that's what we should be doing. So by and large, no quotas, it's even, it's a level playing field, but also a few individual separate initiatives where it feels like it's appropriate.
Yeah, and it seems like the measures that you've taken and the approach that you've had to increasing representation has meant that you don't need quotas and targets because it's happening organically, because it is at the forefront of your thinking, which is exactly what we want people to be doing organically. Manda, I'm going to come to you as a commissioner. We recently announced the BBC's 100 million investment. We're going to be launching a new 20% diversity target. And across the board, broadcasters are doing a huge amount to try and increase representation, both on and off screen. From the world of commissioning, what's your priorities? What could we hope to see happening down the line?
Well, I think even if it wasn't the right thing to do, and it is the right thing to do without question, even if it wasn't, creatively, all any commissioner really wants is to find brilliant, authentic voices speaking from their heart with fantastic stories that are bold and feel like we're treading new grounds and we're not repeating ourselves. And the most surefire way to do that is through people's different lived experience and showing that a huge breadth of lived experience, because in the end we're serving our audiences and our audiences are from all over the UK, and different in every single possible way you can imagine. And so if we don't find new ways to tell, there's only so many genres in the world, there's only so many tricks and slight narrative sleights of hand you can rely on. In the end, you want those voices and you want that lived experience and you want huge variety there. And it would be crazy not to seek that out in every possible way. And obviously Writers' Room have been a huge part of feeding our whole creative community with fresh ideas, fresh voices and fresh stories and fresh perspectives. And without them, it is really difficult. If you are literally writing your first script and you're not connected and you don't know people, how are you ever going to get all the way through to getting your voice into people's homes, into people's living rooms? There was no bridge before. And what Writers' Room has now done is create a proper way through from the voices group, through the drama room, through the TV writers program and beyond. And that's not the only way. I mean, all sorts of writers come in and out at different points and on different schemes and different initiatives and have different relationships with Writers' Room, but it is our way. It's a really important bridge from that first time you make yourself vulnerable by putting your heart and your soul on a piece of paper to the moment where someone says, we're making your show, and you get into people's into the amazing intimacy that television has of going into everybody's living room. And it's such an egalitarian medium as well. Of all the sort of art forms, telly's the most fair and the most the brilliant thing about BBC is potentially we get to everybody in the UK. So that was a long answer, wasn't it?
No, but it was a good answer. It was a good answer. And, it's important. Like you said, it's about making sure that we get those rich stories coming through. And that can come from multiple places, from multiple people. And it's really reassuring to hear that that's how you feel and that's how the organisation wants to continue forward. I'm going to throw a question out to everyone here. What do you think the future is for writers in television? Things are changing rapidly. What do you think the future writers are? Isis, I'll come to you first. Yeah, that's it, girl. I'm going to throw you on the spotlight.
What do I think or what do I want?
Oh, now I like that. Let's go with what do you want?
I think the way Brits nurture their writers and work with development companies and my experience anyway, I've only had positive experiences working with development companies and coming up with something organically. And I think we need to keep that especially for emerging writers. I think it's really important, like me, who's really new in my career, to have a connection with someone and feel like we're building something together. Whereas what I don't like so much is the American style, which is very much, it's all about getting it done quickly and the time frame aspect, and less nurturing, more what are you producing. And that's just a personal opinion of mine that I have had some experience of now that I'm starting to work a bit more. So what do I want? More nurturing, more love. No, I think the writer's room, you feel that when you're in the writer's room, you get the support. And I think when you're new in your career and you can start working with a production company and feel that you're supported within that as well, I think we need more writers' rooms where people are supported, they can write what they want, get the feedback that they need, and be nurtured into becoming better writers.
I love that. That sounds perfect. Right? Yeah, that was good. Vinay, can you top that?
I agree with that. I think the industry has changed even within the relatively short time that I've been within it. But I think the main thing that I see that is an issue is that I think there needs to be more allowance for and understanding of people coming from different backgrounds into rooms. Like, I think I know like one of my first experiences writing on a show, there's like a huge assumption that I would know everything right away. And I think people get really excited by voices, especially like coming out of theatre like I did. They get that sense of voice will, and they'll throw them at a process which can be a machine sometimes, like not as much as the American one, but can be very brutal. It can be very intense, and it can demand a lot of you, which is like, it should, like, that is the job. But I think maybe we get excited by the writers without necessarily preparing them for the stuff around the writing itself so much. And I think, you know, whether that's buddying people up with older writers as soon as they come into rooms, and it's going almost like there's a pastoral system there going, this writer is for you to work with and look after, or whether it's just having a conversation before that room happens about one where you get to ask like all the dumb questions that you can be scared, because being in a room environment in particular is very intimidating. And I know, like, when I was on my first Doctor Who series, I was the least experienced person there. And I just, like, I started making loads of terrible jokes because I knew I couldn't contribute anything else, or I wasn't quite sure what I could do. And so I think that's really important. And yeah, like, just as a small story, like, I remember the first time I got first time I got overwritten on a draft, and the person doing that sent me a really long, lovely email explaining what they were doing and why that is, which they didn't need to, they were super busy, but I've always remembered and appreciated that and go, oh yeah, when I ever run a show, I'll be doing that for any writer I bring on, because that's really brutal, because it feels like you're just having, like, you know, your work ripped out of it, rather than going, oh, I'm taking what you've done and just sort of made it more towards the voice of the show that I want it to be. And so, like, little things like that, not making assumptions about people and background and their knowledge, would be hugely helpful, I think.
Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. And there's some big changes happening in the writers' room. Is there something you can share with us, some news you want to share?
Yeah. So there's a lot of changes going on at the BBC, and there's a lot of changes going on in the whole industry, and writers' room needs to change too. Shane Allen, who's the controller of comedy, will shortly be making an announcement about the new British Comedy Association, and that's going to bring new opportunities for writers. So Writers' Room is going to stop doing comedy. That is, no more comedy call-outs, and the current group will be our last comedy room. However, we will be focusing our attention on working more closely with drama. Oh, look, Vinny's cat's arrived. Mine will join in shortly. And in fact, our next open script submission window opens on December the 7th, for which we will take drama and comedy drama, just not actual sitcom, and don't start me on what the difference is. So I've been pushing for a while for Writers' Room to work more closely with the TV drama commissioning team and integrate what we do sort of more closely in with commissioning. And now there is a plan to do just that. New talent is immensely important to BBC drama, and to put BBC Writers' Room in the heart of BBC drama, I think, is a significant step and feels absolutely right. And at this moment of change, it also feels like the right time for me to think about moving on. It's a big decision, and I haven't made it lightly. When I started, I said I'd do 2 years, and I've done 5. You know, I want to stress that nothing changes immediately. I'm here till the spring. You know, nothing changes straight away. It's absolutely business as usual for the next few months. And in due course, someone else will pick up from me. And do you know, it's absolutely the right moment for somebody new to come in. I came in all guns blazing 5 years ago. I was going to do this and I was going to do that. And it's time for somebody else to do it now. I think, you know, I think it is the right thing, genuinely. I think it's the right thing for somebody with new vision to come in and take Writers' Room on the next stage of the journey. New talent remains absolutely vital, you know, to BBC drama. And I just want to stress that there's no change in that sense of priority. And you know, personally, I really want to take the chance to thank Piers Wenger and Charlotte Moore, who've been brilliantly supportive of Writers' Room. And I should say Manda, who's here, you know, been brilliantly supportive of Writers' Room and really brilliantly supportive of me personally, you know, which I have very much appreciated. And you know, I think Writers' Room will go from strength to strength as part of the drama team.
And well, you weren't kidding. That is big news and changes. And, you know, I personally know that there's going to be a massive loss. It's been brilliant getting to know you. I'm glad you're here until a lot longer than we probably thought you would be. But yeah, your contribution's been amazing. Even if it's, you know, you say it's just been the 5 years, it has been a very profound 5 years. Amanda, I'm coming to you. So Writers' Room, not quite the same as it was before. What does that mean for drama commissioning? What does that mean for you?
Well, losing Anne personally is a huge blow. I feel a bit tearful, even though it's new news to me, obviously. and she will be incredibly hard to replace. And I think we'll never be able to find someone who is such a warrior as Anne has been.
Yes.
On behalf of all the writers.
Last week I was called a street fighter, Amanda.
Street fighter warrior. But I also slightly suspect that we'll get her back one day, because Anne and I both keep leaving the BBC and coming back in different incarnations across the career. So I know it runs through her blood like it runs through a stick of rock, the BBC. So I hope she'll never be far from us. And the important thing is that we hold on to the value that Anne and her team have brought to us in the drama department and in the wider BBC. It's just having that staged way in for writers to develop and grow and find their confidence and find their voice and find their way right to the heart of what we do couldn't be more important. It starts and ends with writers. What we do, it just does. It's the first thing you learn when you work in teledrama, is that it is all about the writer. So we won't let go of that. I'll fight on alongside a new person, Anne, but I'm very glad you're not going anywhere quite yet, and we can just do it gradually and elegantly and keep you on the other end of speed dial, I think.
Thank you.
Definitely. So look, panel, we've had a huge response and a series of questions. I'm going to try and get through as many as I can as possible. And actually, rather than trying to pinpoint it at anyone, probably the easiest thing is just to ask the question out loud, and whoever feels brave enough or competent enough to answer the question, then you can own it. First one starts off from Nick. When trying to sell a script for a television series, would you recommend writing just the pilot and the treatment, or is it always best to write the scripts for every episode of the series first before sending it? Well, Vinay's shaking his head. Okay, that seems like you're the one to answer that one, Vinay.
Well, no, I'm just like, don't do it to yourself. Like, I think, yeah, a pilot and a treatment, sure, maybe like a spec, but I don't think you should be right. They'll know if they'd want it off that already, or at least they want a conversation. Like, you writing out the rest of the episodes won't do anything more for them than, say, giving an outline of those episodes if you want in a shorter document. Yeah, don't do it to yourself. Basically, save yourself.
Very good advice. Anna, this one definitely is for you. Sent in anonymously. I understand you do not accept scripts which have been submitted before, but what about a script that has gone through a drastic change, including a shift from TV show into a film, and has since gotten development funding? Could they resubmit?
Well, we've always said no, because otherwise we end up reading the same script year after year, and we've already read it once. And I always say, don't submit your script till it's the best version of itself. Wait till it's as good as you want. And I also think you should be writing your next script as well. I sort of think you've sent that one once, work on your next one. It's a practical question, but also, yeah, send us your next one. Send us your next brilliant one.
Brilliant. Thanks, Anne. Peter, I'm going to chuck this one to you. I said I was going to open up all the questions to anyone, but I feel like this one's got your name written on it. Remy said, it's about curiosity and confusion in a script. I like writing sci-fi, and one thing I find myself doing a lot at the beginning of a script is purposefully getting the reader confused. I think this is a feeling is part of the thrill when the viewer discovers a new world. So the question, so this is the trailer to the question, was how do you know when it's time to give answers to the audience so that they don't lose interest?
Wow. I think part of that is something you have to learn. Part of that is instinct for where you think the story should land. If I can answer this with another piece of advice, which is if you're working in a specific genre, read great examples of that genre. I think that's how it will reveal itself to you, where you're going to reveal certain plot points. Jimmy Mcgovern said he'd rather the audience was confused for 10 minutes than bored for one. And I think there's something in that. But Jimmy Mcgovern is one of the greatest writers that's ever lived. It's a fine balance to, and it's another reason to get your work read by somebody else, because it stops confusing you because you know where the plot's going. But I think with genre in particular, read the great examples. The Writer's Room has a lot of great examples of great science fiction writing. Read what Russell's done, read what Stephen's done by contrast, and read what the new generation of Doctor Who writers have done. And find it, you can get American scripts online, you can, and see where those, and remember and watch films and think about the films that annoyed you because they did exactly what you're saying you might do, which is the audience is so confused they've lost interest.
Really good advice. Thank you, Peter. I did have a question that suddenly disappeared, but I've managed to remember it. And I think I know what all your answers will be. But is it ever too late to start writing? Somebody stated that they were 50 and wondered if they'd missed the boat.
No.
No?
No.
Excellent. That was the right answer, panel. Great. Next question. I'm disabled and have been submitting my scripts for a few years. This is coming from Rachel. She's been submitting her script for a few years. I've been longlisted a number of times. What is the recruitment process for the Access group? Thanks. Who's best to answer that? Anne, is that something you might be able to advise on?
So we have recruited from various things, and one is from our unsolicited script window. People who've come through to full read and feedback, we might have interviewed, and maybe we think drama room isn't quite right for them. We've put them into the disabled writers group. So they've come through a selection procedure. Apart from that, we've worked with the disability arts organisations, with Dank and Grey Eye and various people, because the writers we're looking for are not necessarily starting out. We're looking for writers who are ready, as it were, to take that next step. And I think the reason they've been so successful, is that, they've been plugging away, and they just needed that push. So by all means, talk to those organisations or keep submitting, as I say, to our unsolicited script window, because quite a few have come via that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Anne. Amanda, I've got one for you. I'm curious, and this has come from Rachel, I'm curious to know how much influence a new writer has over the telling of their story when first commissioned.
Well, I think the truth is that if you're working with the right people, and I mean that right the way through the process, through script editors, development assistants, producers, exec producers, commissioners, whoever is in the little bubble of creativity that is helping your project come to life, you've got to all be really making the same show. The people who are collaborating with you should be helping you bring your vision to life. If there's a big sort of disjunct there, then either you're not working with the right people or something's gone wrong with the process. So I think it's a question that people ask about something that isn't necessarily a huge problem if the process is working correctly, if the development process is working well, and if you've got the right allies. And honestly, for newer writers, I think finding the right allies is the most important thing in the world. It's a lonely process otherwise, and working with people who understand what you're trying to say and really support your vision and will make you the very, very best version of yourself is key. And when you find those people, hold on to them for dear life. And in an ideal world, you will both have an amazing sort of career together that's symbiotic. But finding those people as soon as you can is really important. And then that doesn't really need to be an issue, because hopefully everybody's pulling in the same direction creatively.
Brilliant and great advice. Isis, we have a fan in our viewing gallery. Maria's asking, I'm a writer and it's so good to see a woman of colour in the writing room, which is really encouraging. What top 3 pieces of advice could you offer? And as a follow-up, if there's always a rejection at whatever stage of one's career?
3 words, 3 I would say just write, just write whatever you want, whatever story you want to tell, just get it down. Don't think about anything other than what you want to write. Stay true to yourself. Like Amanda was just saying, like, it is really important to find people that you work well with and can bounce off, because if it's your own idea, you don't want to bend it too much for someone else. So stay true to yourself, and if someone doesn't get you, then that's fine. Say thank you and move on to someone that does. Just always stay true to yourself and keep pushing. One thing I've learned is that you will get no's and you will get repeated notes, and you will sometimes what you've written isn't what someone wants, but that's okay. Just keep going, have thick skin, and just keep pushing. What was the last thing? Sorry.
It was about rejection, and I was actually going to ask both you and Vinny, how do you, as you know, coming up, establishing your career, how do you deal with rejection? How do you deal with the no's?
A little better every time.
Yeah. You just got, I don't know, I'm really new in it, but like I said, I think you just got to keep pushing. You just got to keep pushing, and like, no is no for that person. It's not no for everyone. And if you believe in yourself and what the stories that you want to tell, then just keep going for it. Yeah. No could be the best thing that happens to you. Sorry.
No, like there are different qualities of no as well, which I know sounds really pretentious, but it's like, you can have someone, I've had stuff with people who've turned stuff down and I've gone, oh, that clearly wasn't the right project for them, but I got a better sense of what they liked and what sort of company they were, which can be really hard to gauge, like from just like a general. So yeah, I've managed to like pitch stuff into people afterwards, having got a no from them because I understood them better. So I think it's, yeah, try and take that feedback and see if there's anything useful in it. And if it's not, throw it in the river. But also do consider if actually, oh, I like that how they engage with me, even if it was not the response I was looking for.
Great.
But on the back of that, don't keep trying to flog a dead horse. If you're getting repeated no's for the same script over and over, then maybe think of another idea and start working on that. Because if loads of people are saying no, then there's something about that script that people aren't getting. So maybe either pick it apart and look at it from the beginning, or work on something else and keep it in your back cupboard.
Really good advice. Thank you both. I've got a question from Ruby, really talking about work-life balance. And she says, on Access, how accessible and sustainable is writing as a career for sole parents of young children, especially when you're first starting out? Who'd like to take on that question?
Could I?
Yeah.
I'm not a sole parent starting out, but just to say that certainly for the first 5 years after I got my first commission, which was an episode of Casualty, I was teaching. I was initially teaching full-time, then it went down to part-time as I got more commissions. So so I had 5 years of juggling those two jobs. And for somebody who now works and is fortunate enough to make a living full-time from it, it always sounds like a slightly sort of romanticizing the poverty. It's easy to romanticize poverty when you're not poor anymore. But I have to say that the incentive and the drive and the useful way of filling my writing hours when I also had a part-time job, and that was what was helping me, did in fact, you know, was an incredibly productive period for me in a good way. And I think I think that is, I don't know if I can speak for Vinny and Isis, but that is the pattern of most writers' lives. Certainly when you're starting out, that it's trying to combine those things, because at the heart of it, the thing that makes you a writer in the end is your desire to write, no matter what the circumstances. And because I wrote for 15 years without getting any payment or getting very much on or made, I think. So because you got to scratch that itch every day, at the heart of it is that. And obviously everybody wants their work made, and everybody wants a claim, and everybody wants an audience for their work. That's why we're doing it. But nevertheless, it's the drive at the beginning it's amazing how many people on writers' courses say, do I really have to write the script without a commission? I can understand financially why you want that to be the case, but you should want to write that script above anything else in your life, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is that juggling thing that can be really difficult, but staying on course and on message is the key to do it. Hopefully that's answered your questions. Guys, I'm conscious I've only got a few minutes left and keen to get through as many as I can. So I'm going to try and get you to be quite succinct with your responses. Amanda, this one's to you. Writing can be an exhausting process. How do you give yourself a break after a big drafting process and then jump back into the swing of things afterwards? How do you manage a good work-life balance?
I think one of the writers should answer that. I don't have a good work-life balance.
Okay, so then Vinny, what would be your answer to that then?
It's really important though that writing is a vocation rather than a choice. You know, it's a compulsion. It's such an amazing sort of thing to devote your life to, and I suspect that's self-sustaining in some way. What do the writers think?
As someone who's had terrible work-life balance and is trying to rectify that now, I think the thing I would go back in a time machine, perhaps one shaped like a blue police box, and tell myself would be build the life that makes the writing work, like not the other way around, because don't source all your validation and joy from the job, because a lot of it is a lot of slog, unfortunately. But also just because you'll just dry up as a person. Like you need to have things to mine from. Like I think what Pete was saying earlier was absolutely right. Like when I talk to young writers, especially like theatre writers, I tell them like don't rush to give up the day job, not because you shouldn't be ambitious, but to understand the ambition is to make good work. It's not to necessarily write full time and like through the morning and through the nights. And it's very easy to glamorize that actually, and we all do it a little bit as a way of sort of justifying us making terrible procrastination decisions. But for the most part, you're not a failure and you're not doing it wrong if you're like, oh, actually, I need to be a better partner, or I need to look after my kid and do this. Like that's the thing that will give you longevity rather than like finishing thing in a moment.
Definitely. Great advice. Thank you. And one for you, do you think the ability to join the writers' room digitally will continue, or do we need to accept the fact that we need to be in London to join the writers' room more?
Oh, who says you've got to be in London? We're all over the place. I mean, I think that's just such a myth. I really do. I think Zoom has been very liberating in many ways. Although it's not quite the same as having everybody in the room. But even so, our drama room members, writers have come from all over the country, and we have our groups in the different areas, and we pay people's travel and overnights. I think looking ahead, we'll do a lot more digitally. We'll carry on doing it because it does have a lot of benefits. not least if people are giving up a little less time from their paid work and their day jobs, and it enables them perhaps to make it all work with just selected times where we all get together physically. But I don't want anybody to think their ability to work with the BBC is limited by not living in London.
Brilliant, thank you. Peter, one for you. Can you recommend a good book to help improve writing and in your craft?
I consumed a lot of kind of writing advice books over the years, and in fact, one of the ways I met Bill Gallagher, who became my champion, was going on a creative writing course. So I do think, you know, certain aspects of creative writing can be taught, and especially what Isis was saying about structure. That's where you appreciate the tuition. In terms of, I think John Yorke's book, Into the Woods, is a great read. Don't agree with all of it, but it's a great read, and it kind of helps you see what you might be doing automatically, and so sees where you might want to fix things. But I'd go back to what I said in advice to the science fiction writer. I would, films you love, things you see, read the scripts. The scripts. I think that's how you start to see how it's done.
Yeah.
Read scripts, and there are a lot of it. They've never been more available, actually.
Yeah.
And lots of them on our website, in actual fact.
Well, I was just about to say a great resource is the Writers Room website, where you can get lots of advice and guidance, obviously.
And find stuff you love and read it, and that's, yeah,
definitely. Thank you. We're almost at the end, so I do want to thank the panel for your contribution and support today, and really celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Writers Room and everything that it's done so successfully. But I think the final word should come from Anne. I know you wanted to say a few words.
Yes, and just to say, Kate's video will be on our website. Please look at it. I feel very bad we weren't able to play it in. I just wanted to say, look, I've loved my time at Writers Room. I wanted to say it's been really hard, and I've sworn a lot and I've stamped around, but you know, worthwhile things often are hard. I wanted to thank the team. I think the Writers Room team are brilliant. They're a mixed team, they're dedicated, they're hardworking, they go the extra mile at all times, and they take a lot of flack. Every disappointed writer in the country blames Writers Room for their work not being on telly. But every one of us is thrilled to read a great script, and we're really delighted when a writer we've championed finds success. You know, that's our job satisfaction. You know, I'm so overjoyed Isis is on Killing Eve. I'm so overjoyed, you know, Vinny's Doctor Who. You know, and yeah, I couldn't be prouder or happier. You know, of success of our disabled writers, and that's where that comes from. I think with me going, there'll be a lot less swearing on the 7th floor of Broadcasting House. I think it'll be a lot quieter. But just to say, it's been great, and to thank the team, really.
Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you everybody who joined us. A huge thanks to Amanda, Vinny, Anne, Isis and Peter. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and thanks for celebrating 20 years with us.
And thank you, Miranda, for being a great host.
My pleasure, thank you.
And the panel.
Thank
Thanks
you
so much, guys.
Thank you.